My Switch Lite was in need of a refresh, and this was honestly easier to do than I thought. First, I decided to stop by Dollar Tree to pick up some supplies, and thankfully this location had a large selection of colors for vinyl. I ended up going with 2 rolls of light pink vinyl, and I really only needed 1 roll, but I decided to grab 2 just in case. The vinyl says permanent, but it's easy to remove just in case I wanted to change my Switch in the future. And I also ended up grabbing this X-Acto knife dupe because sometimes my Cricut machine needs a little help with vinyl. When I was looking for a Switch case, I found a lot of them didn't fully cover all of the original color, so I wanted to find one that could hide the blue. I ended up going with this option because it came with a screen protector that had an outer edge in the same color as the case. And this case is also a hard matte case versus being like a softer silicone cover. When I was deciding how to make over my Switch, I had recently gone to DC to see the cherry blossoms. So I went with flower caps that I thought were cute to match that vibe and the case. And these caps that I got are soft silicone caps and comfortable to play with. Once I ordered everything and it was delivered, I took a trip to the mailroom downstairs to pick up the packages. And thankfully no one was there, so I didn't have to embarrass myself recording this part because I'm still getting comfortable with recording in public. And here I am unboxing the case. It already comes with caps, which is nice, but I prefer the flower caps that I bought just because I feel like I like the look a little bit more. I got my Switch Lite during COVID, so it was hard to find any Switches in stock at the time, and I bought mine in the first color that was available. So with the case, you can see why I wanted to get one that was going to cover the blue part of the screen, and why I wanted to get vinyl for where the color peeks through near the buttons. Here are all my supplies laid out. I used my Cricut machine to cut out a Switch Lite SVG file to make the vinyl process easier. But after doing it, I think you can easily cut vinyl by hand to cover the parts that need to be covered. I don't think that using a Cricut is necessary, but it can make things go by faster. And I didn't really explain this before, but the point of using the vinyl is to cover parts of the Switch where the blue will show through the cover. The vinyl is like a durable plastic sticker covering, and you can easily remove it to change it out. This is really more of an extra step, so if the original color showing is not something that would bother you, it's easy to cover your Switch with a case and the button caps and avoid this step altogether. Unfortunately, I am a bit of a perfectionist and I didn't want the original cover showing at all. And then I just applied the vinyl to my Cricut mat and then went over it with my roller tool. And I usually just do this until I feel like it's stuck on the mat enough. Especially since my mats are a little bit older, sometimes projects don't stick as easily to it, so I just like to make sure because it sucks when you have to restart a cut. And then I just loaded the mat into the machine and started my cut on the vinyl setting. I couldn't find my vinyl weeder tool, so I ended up just using a pair of tweezers to weed it out. When I had originally placed the vinyl onto the Switch, it was hard to get it to fit perfectly, but I realized I didn't need to cover the whole Switch, I just needed to cover the parts that would show through the cover. So I slowly took off the vinyl that I already placed, and I cut around the excess. It doesn't need to look perfect because it won't be noticeable. And then I just smoothed out the vinyl. It's important when you're applying vinyl that you don't apply it all at once so you avoid air bubbles. It's easiest to apply it from middle and go outwards, or apply it from one end and smooth it out to the other end. Then I just applied the trickier pieces that are smaller or shaped weird, like these corner pieces. With the front piece, I knew the thin vinyl at the top and bottom were going to be hard to apply. And again, since it wasn't going to show, I decided to just cut the side pieces off and attach those. This is the part where I wasn't sure if I measured wrong or if something was off with my Switch Lite SVG file. It would fit around the buttons, but it felt like it wasn't long enough and it wouldn't adjust correctly. So after looking at it and contemplating, I decided to cut them into individual pieces so that they would fit, but would still cover how they needed to. And this made the process a lot easier also. For the case, the screen protector process was pretty much the same as it would be applying a phone screen protector. I wiped down the screen to get my greasy fingerprints off of it, and then used the drying cloth to dry it. And it also came with dust absorbing stickers and guide stickers. I like to attach the guide stickers to the actual protector first, and then figure out the placement. And once I was happy with the placement, I pushed down the guide stickers onto my Switch. Now this is the satisfying part. After removing the backing, I went from one end to the other to smooth out the screen and try to avoid air bubbles. Once that was done, I removed the guide stickers and moved on to the exciting part, which was clipping on the hard case. For the case, all I had left to do was to cover the SD card and game cartridge ports. The case came with these double-sided stickers and the covers for both ports. I like that these are included to be able to cover the ports while still being functional, and I just peeled one off and stuck it to the back of the cover and then pressed it down to make sure it was secure. I peeled off the second one, and I'm not sure if this was user error, but I had to cut a little bit of the sticker to get it to fit better on the smaller cover. Once they were attached, I peeled the backing off the other side and pressed it onto the correct ports. Here you can see how it can still come out, and it stayed pretty securely even after having it on for some time now. At this point, I was getting excited because I was almost done and it was looking exactly how I wanted it to. All I had left to do was to attach the caps onto the buttons. These are the flower caps again that I bought for this project. I was planning to use the lighter pink flower, this D-pad cover, and the flower petal button covers. And the vibe I was going for was my DC trip to see the cherry blossoms. I got this cute dumpling cover from Chelsea, which I felt was fitting because we had really good dim sum in DC. I started off with these caps since they were the easiest. I just had to push them on. Because this case is a thicker case, I had to get creative to make some of the button covers fit. This D-pad cover came with the case, so my plan was to use it to act like a platform for the D-pad cover that I bought. When I put this D-pad cover on, I actually liked the look of it better with the flower cover, so I actually ended up leaving the plain pink one. I didn't mention, but these also came with double-sided stickers, so that's how I attached the D-pad and these smaller buttons that also came with the case. Then I took Gorilla Super Glue to make sure that the bond was secure and would last. I put a tiny amount to each petal cap before sticking it directly onto the other button covers. Once again, this is the before, and this is the after. Overall, I would say this was easy to do and not super expensive. I think the case was probably the most expensive, but overall I spent around $35 total. But you could definitely find a cheaper case and button cover alternatives to bring the cost down if you wanted to try to do this. I was able to finish this in one sitting, and I think it's still doable even if you manually cut the vinyl. I've had my Switch like this for around 2 years, and it's held up really well. So I'm happy that I did this because I love my Switch every time I look at it, and life's too short not to have a little whimsy with your stuff.